Welcome to our next session, Glued to Your Platform. What we are witnessing today here in our country is a storytelling revolution. We know there's only one question in our minds. How do they do what they do? How do they retain audiences? And how do they thrive in this highly competitive OTT market? Let's get them on and hear from the best creators of the streaming platforms. Leading this is none other than UDAY SODHI, the founding partner of KURATE Digital Consulting, who's held multiple leadership positions in the Indian digital ecosystem. Thank you for joining us today, and over to you, Uday.
Thank you, Rajika. My recommendation to everybody is to stay glued on to this conversation for sure. This is going to be interesting. We have three very eminent people who are going to share their thoughts with us. We've got APARNA, who's head of content at Amazon. We've got Shogata, who's head of content development at Sony Live, and NIKHIL, who heads original content development at HOTSTAR. The biggest storytellers in the city today. So let's start listening to them. Okay, so I'm going to open this up, and we want to hear more of you. Tell us, in the last year and a half, what has worked, what hasn't worked, what are you seeing as the big headlines, what's on your head when you're selecting the shows for the future, the shows that you're making currently, movies that you're making currently. Tell us what's going through your head and what are you picking and what are you not picking. Let's start with that and then we'll jump deep into it. Parna, let's start with you.
Thank you so much for having me on this panel, and what an honor to speak to such incredible leaders, from our business. I really believe, and I've said it often, that what we're witnessing today is really entertainment renaissance of sorts. Where the audiences have become so discerning because they are watching content not just from here, but from across the world. So they've become very discerning, and we are all vying for that same pie of, audiences' times. So, mediocrity is not going to work anymore. I think really compelling, interesting, differentiated stories that are truly rooted in our soil, is what the audiences are looking for. The other interesting thing is that the lines between local, global, regional are all blurring. Today, an audience sitting in Punjab is enjoying cinema from Kerala, and we are enjoying a marvelous Mrs. Maisel. So these lines are blurring. I think what's really interesting is having characters that are relatable, that are identifiable, because I really believe that, if you're spending 8 to 10 hours watching a show, these characters really come and start inhabiting your lives. They really become a part of almost your extended family. So it's very important to have relatable characters, that can even outlast us. So I really believe that those are some of the things. And the one other interesting thing is that, at least in Amazon, we are programming for the many Indias that coexist, not just, one sort of homogeneous mass. And the taste, preferences of the audiences change, every few kilometers. So you have to program for, people living in Kashmir and people living in Mandamans. Today, Prime Video is being watched in almost 99% pin codes of the country. So that is really important. Having deep libraries in local languages is what's really important. Currently, we have content in about 9 Indian languages and, of course, English. But I think we need to go deeper there.
Nikhil, you want to add to that?
Yeah, I echo most of these sentiments. In fact, what's happened is especially in the last year and a half too, the number of people who've started subscribing, paying for content and subscribing to premium content has really exploded. And what that means is they're now suddenly exposed to premium content storytelling from all over the country and across the globe. And that has also significantly increased their repertoire of the kind of shows that they're watching, right? The kind of shows, the stories, the genres, that's really expanded in a big way. So that's one thing. And I echo Aparna's sentiments that, they're becoming really discerning because they're exposed to so much quality. And I think you need to be extremely authentic in the stories that you're telling. If there are false notes, they tend to pick it up quite quickly. Thirdly, the traditional definitions of this is a show for male audiences, this is a show for female audiences, women will watch romance and men will watch action, all that is, sort of breaking down. So you'll have, 55-year-old women watching special ops and you'll have 18-year-old boys watching Out of Love. So, just the kind of stories that they're watching is fairly extensive, and that's really good. And, for us at HOTSTAR, with the size and scale that we have, there's also this added responsibility of sort of creating the SWOT market in the country, right? To keep going deeper. And those are the challenges that we are grappling with, that from where we are, how do we go deeper and, make our stories relevant to a large proportion of this country? So yeah, those I would say are the broad 3 or 4 things that I've observed in the last 2 years specifically.
Thanks, Nikhil. Saugata?
Yeah, I pretty much echo what Nikhil and Aparna just said. I think the biggest thing today is that our audiences are really exposed to great content across the world. And I think the last 2 years or, 20 months of the pandemic has sort of really, increased that manifold. So the challenges for us have become stiffer because, you're not just competing, and Amazon is not competing with a HOTSTAR, with a Sony or a Netflix, but Amazon is competing with Amazon itself. Or, it's like, you're competing with an Italian show and you're competing with an Indian show and you're competing with a Korean show. So I think what Aparna just said, what we are now witnessing is almost like a, digital content renaissance. And I think it has never been such for many, many years. It's exciting. Having said that, it's also for all of us, the ecosystem here, to nurture it and let it grow and let it sort of, become what it can become. And for us, India especially, I think, because we are such a nation where there are many languages, there are different kinds of food, there are different kinds of people are practicing different religion. I think it's very important that we voice or give a voice or allow stories from different parts of the India and help it reach people across the borders and within the borders as well. I think which has finally given platforms a greater scope to look at the treasure trove of stories that we have within our country and take it across the borders and help the cultures, the ethos of the country reach the other coasts.
Thanks a lot. I'm picking up 3-4 things. Obviously, there's a renaissance happening here. There's obviously now we're reaching out to many more consumers in the last year and a half. Subscription businesses are being built. And like Saugata said, that there are multiple challenges in doing all of this. I want to talk a little bit more about challenges. What are your big challenges? And Saugata, I want to start off with you. What are your big challenges? Are stories your challenge? Is talent a challenge? Is writing a challenge? Is the fickleness of the audiences an issue? Where are the challenges? Where, what are the things that you have in mind when you're going out and saying, what do I need to address when I'm going to tell a story?
Look, yes, challenges are many, but I think the biggest challenge I see today, especially because there is this almost, the ecosystem, the talent pool is very small, right? We have not had that window of 25 years to learn what is long form storytelling, right? We have sort of, jumped onto the boat and we're supposed to, and thrown in the mid waters, right? So I think Indians are rather adaptable, right? We pick up fast. And I remember from where we were 3 years back, and I think
Sorry for jumping in. Sorry for jumping in, Shagata. I thought the television industry in this country told the longest stories ever.
Yes, Uday, but that is a different kind of a skill set. What we are trying to tell is a very different kind of a skill set, right? This kind of storytelling hasn't been around for a while. So I feel that what it was 3-4 years back, if I look back, it's much better. But I think we need, as platforms, as as broadcasters, we need to sort of nurture newer talent and allow giving space and voice to new people. I think that will only grow the ecosystem. And I have seen this happen because, we've just sort of gotten into other languages. I think Hindi in the last couple of years has managed to have a new crop of new talent coming in. The other regions now are sort of they're trying to follow suit, but it's going to take a little longer. That's a definitive challenge. The other is, of course, the challenge of creating them fast. We need to have that nimbleness. We need to have things, we are riding a beast, right? And the beast needs to be fed. And you've thrown in a pandemic, a googly there through the pandemic. And how do you sort of feed the beast when there is nothing to be fed? And I think all of us have faced the challenge over the last 18 odd months, and we're still facing it day in and day out. But I think, we are living and learning. And I think all of us have managed to put out some great shows across platforms. But I think technology is going to be something that we need to be using much, much more. And as we go forward, I see there is great scope for that being put to use in the filmmaking more than we have ever used, because that sort of probably saves on time and cost. But these are things which are an ongoing process.
Thanks.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, that makes sense. I understand that obviously talent is an issue. It's a new industry. We've been all working at it for the last 7 years, trying to get it off the ground. So yeah, so the industry is new. There's a shortage of talent. The real long form stories have started coming through only in the last 4-5 years. And obviously we want to hit the market fast. Now, the result of that probably is the cost goes out of control. Does it? Nikhil, Aparna, what happens when your lack of talent or very limited talent and you need speed? How do you manage the cost? Because that's going to have an implication, and that's a huge challenge, I would assume, in your lives. Nikhil?
Yeah, I think costs are going up because talent is limited. You land up seeing common themes across all of us, because we're all learning as industry, both internally and externally, right? It's early days, and the number of people who are creating content and the amount of content that's being created it's really not funny. I mean, it's just exploded in the last couple of years, and as a result of that, talent is scarce, costs are going up. The pandemic hasn't helped because everything, all the projects that were on across OTT, television, movies have all sort of now coagulated at the same time. So infrastructure is also under some amount of stress. How do you get studios, post-production, etc. done? So those are also things that we're grappling with. The other aspect is that as you start going into these newer parts of India and want to convince people to say you have to pay for content, and it is a difficult task to convince Indians to pay for content. The real challenge also is to figure out what are the kind of stories they're going to be compelling enough for them to open up their wallet and say, hey, yeah, this is really good. I'm going to pay for this and watch this. So obviously ad funded content, there's a plethora of that going around. But really if we want to continue on this premium content journey, we need to take our consumers along. They need to be able to have that relationship with us. And we need to be able to provide them with the stories which they feel like this is compelling enough for me to shell out money. So I think that's one really big thrust where both content and technology are coming together to find solutions.
Aparna, on the language side, while we talk about challenges, tell us more about your language journey, because Amazon done some amazing stuff across languages, on the films and on the shows. Uh, Tell us more about the challenges that you face uh, going into different languages. How do you decide, or what goes through you when you're selecting something? Because it's like food. Uh, the flavors are different in each part of the country, and it's spicy somewhere else, and it's something else somewhere else. How do you decide what works, which language, and which audience needs what?
That's a great question, and I'm again, at the cost of sounding repetitive, going to say that, we are actually programming for many Indias. Our audiences are spread across the length and breadth of the country. And, what would work for me may not work for, somebody sitting in Kerala. So very early on, we decided that we need to have multiple languages on our service and multi-genres, not just one kind, of storytelling, but, different. We need to have a larger sort of bouquet of stories. What's really important is to have local boots on the ground, people who really understand the pulse of their audiences. So I have a team today, that is sitting in Chennai, in Hyderabad. They are the best to understand what the audiences in those regions, would like to watch. We also went into it slowly, as far as the original content is concerned. We first sort of strengthened the Hindi pillar, and then we started going into, the other regional territories, starting with Tamil and then Telugu, and now we're going to be planting green shoots in other languages. But what our licensing team did was incredible. They went and got these gems on our service. So today, a Kumbalangi Nights or a Great Indian Kitchen, or some gems from other languages are being enjoyed by, people from across the country. What's really interesting is that the 50% of viewership of these regional language films is coming from outside home state. These films are being enjoyed in over 170 countries. One out of every five a viewer of our original content is from outside India. So that's what I'm saying. The lines are blurring. But at the heart of all of this is the story and the vision and the passion of the storyteller. And I think we are just trying to create that sort of home for talent, where viewers come, where creators come and tell the stories that they have been wanting to tell. And we just want to be those enablers, really.
Shogata, you guys just got into regional content, just done some interesting stuff there. Tell us more. How did you take the first steps? What was your thought process? How did you pick the first few that you went into? And maybe Nikhil, you can add to the same thing, because you've also done a few in the regional side.
So yeah, I think Uday, we of course tried to first look at the Hindi, get that pillar sorted, have our pipeline sorted on the Hindi bit, and then took baby steps towards a few other languages. We've been very lucky. We've picked up some really, really interesting films over the last couple of months. In fact, we launched a film a couple of weeks back, Malayalam film Parnikani, and it's done absolutely fabulous across India. It has actually sort of surpassed some of the Hindi films or Hindi stuff that we have done, right? So I think it's very important. We have a team who are dedicated towards looking at content from the region. We have a Tamil team now, we have a Telugu team now, and soon enough we're going to have a team in Kerala and in Bengal, right? I think it's very important to understand the pulse of the region, very, very importantly, the language, the cultures, and know better than the people who are embedded in that culture, right? So we always, we've given enough and more import to that. All our team members are working out of the regions that I just spoke about. But more importantly, I think we have also picked up storytellers who were not being able to tell their stories that easily because of the whole theatrical business, the way it works, right? These are small films, and sometimes because of the pressures of the way box office works, sometimes they do not find the audience that they probably deserve. But digital platforms are truly democratic. They find their platforms not in Kerala, but maybe in Muscat, maybe in the US, maybe in Nigeria. And I was amazed that the numbers of Kane Kane have just sort of shot through the roof from people outside of India, right? So, in fact, it's one of the most viewed films on the platform outside of India on Sony Live. So we are very gung-ho about it. I think that is the India that we should really target, because the real gems, I believe, over the next few years are going to come out of Kerala and Tamil Nadu and Assam and Bengal and Kashmir, and those are the storytellers that we need to sort of support, give space to, and allow them to tell the stories that they always wanted to tell for many years now.
Yeah, I totally echo that sentiment. I think two watchouts for the industry. One, Aparna and Shogata both mentioned this: boots on the ground are extremely crucial. Just like you can't run Indian content out of the USA, similarly, you can't run local content sitting out of Mumbai. So organizationally, I think it's very important to have boots on the ground. The second part is that, the way these stories are traveling. I mean, I'll give you an example. A Tamil show that we did called November Story is one of the biggest hits on the platform across for the year. And that's a story that was created out of Tamil Nadu and then just blew up for us sort of across the platform. So the opportunity is great. We have to have boots on the ground. And the second thing that we have to make sure is that the way you think of local content, what we call regional content, sometimes people make the mistake of saying, okay, I have 20 Hindi shows and I have done 10 regional shows, 2 in Bengal, 1 in Tamil Nadu, 3 in Kerala. And that is not regional strategy, because it's, product out. The consumer who's sitting in those markets doesn't want to be served 2 stories in a year and will not consider you to be their brand. They want to be served the same way as all the Hindi consumers want. So it has to be a regular pipeline. It has to be compelling stories. You have to keep them at the center and deliver to them. That is, according to me, great way of localization, not just counting the number of sort of non-Hindi programs that you put out.
Nikhil, the other thing that I want you to give us some insights on is, you're the king of sequels. So tell us, how do you crack the sequels? You've got every show that has succeeded. You've got at least 1 more season or 2 more seasons either out there or coming. So tell us, how are you thinking through the whole sequel strategy?
Right. So, I think the first thing, and I'm sure this is also common, is that when you come up with when a showrunner or a creator tells you about their story, of course, the story needs to be great. But one of the important things that we look out for is, does it have legs beyond just 1 season? Because you don't want to, create those characters, create that world, set up that brand, and then it's sort of over in 7 hours on one Saturday for the viewers. You want to be able to make sure that they engage with it for much longer. That's also how you build audience loyalty. So one of the things that we insist on is that once you have the first season in play, you must also have season arcs for, let's say, season 2 and 3 in play as well. So we know that this story has legs and people have sort of thought through it. The other thing that we've also been doing recently is that if we have the first season, which seems to have done well, then we're trying to expand it into a bigger universe and do multiple seasons together. So Special Ops is one example where after the first season, we actually commissioned a sequel and a prequel together. And one of them is ready. It's going to launch in a couple of months. The other one is going into shoot. So even for the fans of that show, they know that every 8, 9, 10 months, there is something which is around my favorite brand, which is going to be available on HOTSTAR. So that's really been the thinking behind sequels and how we've been sort of able to enable it. I still think there's a lot of scope to improve and make sure that we can do this a little faster and we can do it together. But we're also learning.
Aparna, you want to add to that? Obviously Amazon's worldwide huge learning on sequels. Tell us, how are you trying to do more on that in India? Because that creates a franchise, which is, amazing.
Actually, Nikhil outlined it so well. And earlier on, you were talking about, what are the biggest challenges? I think the challenge is to get the subsequent season out, well within the time, because development takes time, right? You still need to set up the writer's room for the next season. You need to build a story which is just as compelling. So that, I would say, is, one of the biggest challenges that I'm facing. But I'm really happy to share that about 70% of our shows, are in their next seasons. And like Nikhil rightly said, when you're talking to the creators, you're asking them to build an immersive world. And the beauty of this format is that, you can tell every layer, every nuance of the story. There's no character who's sitting on the fence. You can go deeper into every character. And like I was mentioning earlier, we create characters that are so deep, that are so relatable. And really their stories can travel. And if you're investing so much watching a character over 8 to 10 hours, you would want to develop a deeper bond with that character. You'd want them to come back into your life and tell their stories more and more. So we continue to create sort of those immersive worlds. We continue to create characters that will have the legs to travel beyond sort of one season. Mirzapur, we're going to be launching season 3. Breeds, we're going to be launching season 3. Inside Edge, we're going to be launching season 3. So, that's the kind of love, and they just sort of become a part of popular culture, and you have to keep serving your audiences.
Amazing. One quick question, Aparna. Now, what's with biopics and real life stories? Why are audiences lapping that up? Or is it more that it's easier to make? There are more books around it, so there are more written literature around it, so it's easier to put up. Is it a producer's ease, or is it what consumers want?
That's a question actually for Shogata, considering I haven't done a biopic yet. But I would say that at the heart of it is a good story that the audience wants to watch. Is a character who can really inspire them, is a character who's complex, great, dealing with their demons, triumphing. And sometimes when those characters are from real life, they become even more relatable, I would say. But, again, at the heart of it, it's that story, it's that spine. Is it connecting with you? Are those conflicts and conundrums that the characters dealing with it, are you identifying with that? Is that resonating with you? I think that's really the key. So biopic, no biopic, any story, what's your story and why must it be told is really the bottom line.
Shogata, tell us about your fascination with biopics.
Well, look, what Aparna just said, it needs to be a fascinating story. Even if a story about my life is not going to be that exciting, right? So, so it is the story. It's the story.
Shogata, you're being humble. Your life is quite exciting, as I know.
Yeah, it's getting exciting more and more.
But I think it's the character that you pick. It's the character, the character and the universe around him. The one thing, though, I believe that when you pick up a story about a particular person or character from history, it sort of situates the story in a time and sort of helps you to sort of contextualize the era, right? I feel that curiosity, I think, are one of the most important things in the audience today is, they are a discerning audience and they're a curious audience. So they want to know more. They want to find out a little bit more about these people. To give you a little bit of a trivia, when we did Scam, and there was some we did some Google analytics, and people searched about Harshad Mehta. There were some billion hits on just searching about who this guy is, right? And I think that's very, very, very important. Again, when we did Maharani, and when the show had nothing to do with the real life character, it was sort of loosely based on an era bygone. And again, it shot through the roof. People were discussing, was the governor there? Who was this governor? Look, now the fact is, people have become curious about that time. And the good thing is that if you can make it real and authentic, if you can tell the story authentically, I think people lap it up. But at the heart of it, are you picking the story which is exciting? Is the character exciting? Does he have different shades in his character? Can you create a universe around him? Only then it works. Just picking up a biopic doesn't work.
Perfect. Nikhil, can you wrap up for all of us? Just tell us where do you see this going ahead? What's going to be, what's the big story for the year ahead? What are you excited about? One quick one-liner, if you can just wrap up.
I think it's we're fortunate because this is day one as far as OTT revolution is concerned, as far as the renaissance of content is concerned. The opportunity is amazing, and just in the last couple of years, the nature of the stories that are coming to us and that's getting executed has improved so dramatically. I think this is an exciting time. It's going to get really big, and I think the stories that are going to come out of India in this medium particularly are really going to rule the world. So for all the storytellers in this country, it's a dramatic opportunity to tell your stories and put it out in the world, and it's only going to get bigger and exciting. It's just day one.
Thank you so much for all your lovely thoughts, Aparna, Shagata, Nikhil. This is truly amazing. Like Nikhil said, this is day one, and hopefully content coming out of India is going to rule the world, and we're going to be the capital of the OTT content also, and we will make a mark for ourselves. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Uday.
Thank you so much for this.
Thank you, Uday.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Uday. All right.
Thank you there. Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.